The year is 2020. The coronavirus is spreading, and you and your family have been ordered to shelter in your home until further notice, only to come out when absolutely necessary. Your entire world has been flipped on its head, and now you're isolated from your friends and teachers. This is the reality I and many other teenagers faced during the COVID-19 pandemic, and some of us took it better than others. Many of us teens were robbed of precious memories, i.e. an actual graduation and prom, while COVID-19 will be overcome in the future. There is no doubt in my mind that another pandemic like the coronavirus will come to wreak havoc on our lives. So I made this as a guide to teens of the future, of what to do in the event of a quarantine such as the one we Gen Z kids have experienced so you don't go batshit crazy. And I'm speaking from experience here, so a lot of what I say is drawn from real life experience, and it may end up going differently for you. So keep that in mind while you're watching this video. I know, it's tempting to go outside, but please, for the love of God, take government quarantines seriously. Even if a city on the other side of a country is going into shelter in place, and your neck of the woods is completely fine, that doesn't give you an excuse to go out and panic buy enough toilet paper to sustain a small town for a month. For the love of God, do not do this! And if one of your family members tries to do so, please do everything in your power to stop them. The worst thing to do in a pandemic is to panic. If cases are reported, start getting your friends' phone numbers, Instagram accounts, whatever, but make sure to set up a communication system with the outside world. Because if you don't, things are going to be a lot harder. Trust me, I made the mistake of not keeping in contact with my classmates, and it ended horribly. I'll spare you the mental baggage from my experience and leave it at that. Also, collect whatever school supplies you'll need for the quarantine, and stock up on your favorite snacks and drinks. I'm not saying buy the entire stock, but just a little extra so they last a bit longer so you'll have to shop less often. And on a final note, you should definitely get a new Wi-Fi router for your house if you can, because when school goes into quarantine mode, you definitely want to be able to have good internet. It's pretty much a no-brainer. When should you start doing this? Probably once the virus starts infecting more people within the country and becomes a major concern. Okay, now hopefully you've gotten everything you need for the quarantine. Now, the good news is that you could still hopefully go outside. The bad news is that going outside is a terrible idea, and you should only go outside only when absolutely necessary. If your school is in session, then expect an uptick in schoolwork, and be prepared to be stuck in your room for hours doing homework. If your school is somewhat tuned into their own students, you should probably tell them to keep homework to an absolute minimum, and prioritize their students' own sanity and well-being over some really stupid project or whatever. And don't tell them this just once, but keep telling them to keep the workloads down so people who are easily stressed and or have strained relationships with their families can have less to worry about. Unless you like schoolwork, then just keep it at a manageable level. And also, for the love of God, keep in contact with your friends. I don't care whether they go to the school you go to or not, but just keep in contact with them. Trust me, they'll be a huge help in keeping you sane. If you haven't heard from a friend in a while, then reach out to them. They'll definitely appreciate it. My experience during this quarantine was me waiting for a month before I started actively reaching out to my classmates, and let's just say it didn't end well. Also, another note, do not try to ask someone out during this time. Take it from me, it won't go well, even if you are 100% certain that your crush likes you back. I say save it for after the quarantine. And if you make the attempt during the quarantine, don't say I didn't warn you. Also, if you start going crazy after a while, then that's okay. Being trapped in your own house isn't normal, and humans need social interaction of some sort to stay fully mentally stable. Unless you're a complete introvert who hates talking to people, then forget what I just said. Regardless, you might want to find something that can keep you entertained during the quarantine and take your mind off of the enormous amounts of stress that you'll be dealing with. It could be anything from video games to watching movies to binging your favorite TV show or whatever else you seem to come up with. Another thing of note is that as time goes by, you'll find that the end date for said quarantine will be pushed back again and again. It can be infuriating at times, and to that I say try to blow off that steam in a productive manner. It could even get so bad that you miss out on the rest of the school year. This is normal, apparently, as the situation with the virus is rapidly evolving and makes long-term estimates and planning nigh impossible, so just be prepared for the worst. And remember to make sure you remain sane long enough to see the other side of this quarantine. And please know that there are people out there who care about you. There are points during the quarantine where I felt like I was abandoned, left to fight my own mental struggles, fighting mental battles I felt no one could comprehend. But luckily, I was wrong, and chances are if your mind starts thinking stuff like that, it's almost certain that train of thought is incorrect. And if you need professional help, there's people who are there to help you. Links to some organizations that can help in the video's description. And if for some reason you don't trust an actual therapist, I know I certainly didn't, then don't be afraid to confide with your friends and family. Unless you don't have any friends or family you trust, then I say seek professional help. The quarantine is over, and society is slowly returning to normal. If you're like me, then you'll probably have gone through one of the toughest parts of your lives. Period. Precious memories have been stolen, plans have been obliterated, and you may have lost a loved one along the way, and you feel like you'll never be the same. And that might actually be the case. You got hit in probably one of the worst spots of your life possible, and honestly, this is probably going to stick with you for years, if not the rest of your life. If you feel like you need a therapist, go find a therapist, because you probably need one after everything you went through. Hopefully, this video has helped you minimize the negative effects of the quarantine on your mental well-being. And hey, maybe you actually use the quarantine to resolve some deep-seated mental issues, or finally finish off that thing you were always saying you do, but never got around to it. Which, in that case, good for you. Well done. So, that was my guide on how to survive the quarantine with your sanity more or less intact. A lot of this is based off my experience in quarantine, and a lot of what's been said was stuff I wish I knew back when the quarantine started. So it may not be entirely accurate or foolproof. All I can say is that I wish whomever is watching this is well, and if there's one final piece of advice you should take above all else, is that you should love yourself. Even during times like these. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again whenever I decide to make another video. See you then, and take care.